In a world where every morning greets the whisper of the wind and sunsets paint stories on the sky, I first felt the delicate thread of destiny piercing my heart. It was during those carefree days of my childhood when time flowed slowly like honey, and every sound and scent filled the world with magic. I remember sitting on the porch of an old white house in a small town where every street breathed history, and neighbors felt more like family than mere passersby. My name was Ava, and even then, I intuitively felt that there was something more in this world than just the daily routine. My attention was inevitably drawn to the house across the street, where Jamal lived, a man shrouded in mystery and a deep, almost magical nobility. His presence was like a quiet melody playing beyond ordinary perception, and even as a child I couldn't help but feel his gaze piercing through me. Every time the sun's rays glided over his neatly trimmed porch, and the gentle breeze rustled his dark hair, a strange mix of admiration and unknown longing stirred within me. Perhaps it was just a childhood fantasy or a secret premonition of something forbidden, but at that time I couldn't distinguish ordinary curiosity from genuine excitement, which later became my constant companion. In those days, the world seemed vast and mysterious. I loved observing Jamal from afar, trying to unravel his enigmatic nature. His calmness, confidence in every gesture, and the quiet strength emanating from his presence awakened in me the desire to understand what lay behind the ordinary facade. Sitting on the porch, I listened to the rustling of leaves, and it seemed that in every gust of wind, his unspoken story echoed, and in every star in the night sky, reflections of his lived years and secrets shimmered. My childhood days were filled with observations. How Jamal, going for a walk, confidently strode along the paths as if familiar with every bend of the ancient town. How his gaze lingered on the details, on a blooming flower by the fence, or the shimmering reflection of the moon in his window panes. These little details left an indelible mark on my soul, awakening in me what later turned into a yearning for the unknown, a desire to find that spark of light hidden behind the veil of the familiar world. In every movement of his, I saw echoes of the past and a shadow of the future, as if an invisible thread stretched between us, binding two hearts, even if they didn't know it. Over the years, this feeling only intensified, and looking back, I realized that at that moment, I already heard the call of my heart, a call that was both tender and inexplicably troubling. Psychologically, I didn't understand the complexity of this awakening at the time. For little Ava, the whole world was a game where every encounter, every touch of light or shadow, became pieces of a puzzle forming the picture of destiny. Jamal was like a riddle to me, one that I sought to solve without understanding that this riddle touched the deepest and hidden corners of the soul. Sometimes late at night, when the city was enveloped in soft darkness and only the streetlights flickered quietly, I could sit for hours by the window, watching the light flickering on the opposite side of the street. In those moments when the world around seemed still, I felt a growing curiosity, a desire to understand what lay behind Jamal's outward calm. His face, illuminated by the soft light of the evening streetlights, seemed both kind and wise, and his gaze, full of lived stories, beckoned me to new discoveries and secrets waiting for their time. This invisible connection, born in childhood, was like a quiet call that couldn't be explained by logic and rationality. It penetrated the deepest corners of my consciousness, making my heart beat faster and disturbing my thoughts, sometimes leaving me in a state of mild stupor from the realization of what I felt. Perhaps then I didn't understand that this feeling foreshadowed something much more significant, which in the future would become a source not only of inspiration, but also of inevitable moral dilemmas, trials, and ultimately forbidden love. The first sparks lit in those days became the foundation for who I became. They left an imprint on my soul of a delicate yet unquenchable longing for something that couldn't be called a simple fascination. It was a desire filled with contradictions, a yearning for light and at the same time, anxiety before the unknown, a desire to touch the forbidden without knowing that behind every new discovery lay a price to be paid. Thus, the first moments of my life in this small American town became the starting point of a long and winding path, where every encounter, every glance, and every quiet whisper of the wind reminded me that life is a riddle that cannot be fully understood. And in this riddle, like in nature itself, there is always room for mystery, for forbidden desire, which, like a quiet melody, continued to resonate in the depths of my heart, promising to open new worlds and trials capable of turning everything I knew upside down. Since the first time I saw Jamal, my childhood dreams and innocent expectations blended with something much deeper and inexplicable. And although I didn't yet realize all the consequences, each of his smiles, each fleeting glance left an indelible mark, awakening in me that irresistible longing for the mysteries that surround us and for the forbidden love that holds both the promise of happiness and the inevitable pain of loss. This story is just beginning, and even in its prelude, there is a sense of great drama to come, where every spark from the past will fuel future storms. Though the world around may seem familiar and known, within each of us lives a quiet voice calling to the unknown. And perhaps one day, this voice will change everything. When I stepped onto the sprawling university campus, the world around me resonated with new, unfamiliar melodies. From the first moments, I felt how every path, every building, and every corner here pulsed with life full of possibilities and secrets. The hum of voices, the ringing of bells, and the rustling of leaves in the parks created a sense of endless motion in which I had to find my place. I felt my soul tremble with excitement and uncertainty, as if everything I knew before dissolved in this whirlwind of change. The student quarters opened up a world where the boundaries of the familiar and the new blurred, and every moment became a test of my inner strength. Lectures, endless discussions in cafes, night walks under the starlit sky, all this seemed both refreshing and frightening. In my heart, amid the bright colors of new friends and bold ideas, there remained a quiet shadow of the past, a reminder of that house where I was born, and of that person whose image had captivated me since childhood. Every day was filled with discoveries. Meeting classmates who shared their dreams, passions, and doubts made me think deeper about my own essence. In the bustle of university days, I sought moments when I could pause, listen to my heart, and in those moments, Jamal's image would surface. My mysterious neighbor, whose wisdom and calmness seemed to me a symbol of long-lost harmony. His image, like a quiet echo, resonated in my thoughts. In every echo of his gentle gaze, in every reflection tinged with the light of sunset. New friends, with their vibrant stories and carefree confidence, awakened in me the desire to dissolve into this turbulent stream of life. At parties where the rhythms of music mixed with the noise of conversations, I allowed myself to forget old fears, the feeling of unsettledness that always quietly crept up when I thought of home. But even in the heat of joy, when laughter and happiness filled the night air, there was always a chill of longing, a thin line separating the past and the present. On one of those autumn evenings, when the wind played with the fallen leaves, I found myself on the shore of a small lake, where the world seemed to have stopped in anticipation of something important. Here, alone with myself and nature, I first realized that growing up is not just a step towards freedom, but also a path where every memory becomes a beacon, pointing to the true me. Under the quiet whisper of water and in the light of the muted sunset, my thoughts turned to Jamal again. His image, filled with inexpressible depth and quiet strength, as if passing through time, reminded me that within each of us lies an unexplored mystery. These moments of solitude and self-analysis became my starting point in the search for identity. Meetings, lessons, spontaneous conversations, and quiet observations of life around me. All this formed a mosaic where I tried to find my true face. In every new day, I felt how the past quietly whispered to me that it had not disappeared, but was waiting for the moment to take shape again, to speak to my soul once more. And in this play of light and shadow, hope and doubt, I understood. True growing up begins when you learn to listen not only to the noise of the surrounding world, but also to the quiet, barely perceptible voice within yourself. Under this starlit sky, where dreams and reality intertwine in a single dance, I found the confidence that my destiny is not just a chain of random events, but a conscious choice that defines the whole life. I began to see in every passerby not just a new friend, but a reflection of my own soul. And it was in this complex interplay of meanings, where the past intertwines with the present, that I found that spark capable of igniting the flame, illuminating my path into the unknown future. Returning home always brings a special magic, as if the earth itself whispers forgotten secrets scattered in every stone and bend of the old streets. I stepped onto the familiar path again, and every moment seemed filled with anticipation. The wind playing with the fallen leaves, the murmur of neighbors' conversations, the warm light of evening lanterns. All this awakened in me the feeling that time had slowed down, allowing me to dissolve into the past once more. The house where I grew up looked as if its walls held the stories of an entire life. Narrow alleys, cozy courtyards, and the aroma of freshly baked bread wafting from the small bakery on the corner. All this was so familiar and close, as if enveloping me in an invisible blanket of dear memories. But amid all this gentle harmony of my childhood, one image pierced my soul with its unchanging strength. The image of Jamal. I remembered him from the first days when, as a child, I admiringly watched him leisurely stroll along the fence, his steps echoing the rhythm of time. Today, returning to my hometown, I encountered him again, on the porch of his old but tidy house, where the soft evening light caressed his wise face. In his gaze there was the same calm confidence with which he met each new day, and at the same time, something inexpressible that stirred my heart. Our eyes met, and at that moment, amid the familiar sounds of the evening city, I felt a spark ignite within me, as tender as it was forbidden. He smiled slightly, and his eyes, filled with the deep experiences of lived years, made me forget about the city's bustle and immerse myself in an atmosphere of quiet nostalgia. Every wrinkle on his face, every line carved by time, spoke of his understanding of the value of life, and in this knowledge lay genuine warmth. I walked along the familiar road, feeling the rustle of fallen leaves under my feet, and in every step echoed the past. The city seemed both changed and unchanged. New storefronts of neighboring shops mixed with ancient houses, and the air was filled with the scent of change, framed by eternal nostalgia. In every corner, in every light of a lantern, I sought his image, like an ancient symbol that never leaves the soul. Several times our paths crossed accidentally, at the threshold of the mailbox, during an evening walk in the park, when the warm light of sunset dissolved all boundaries between the past and the present. In these fleeting moments, I felt my soul rebelling against the inexorable laws of time, and my heart against the prescribed norms, striving for what always seemed unattainable. Standing by the window of the old house, I watched as the soft light of the evening twilight enveloped the courtyards, and somewhere in the distance the quiet laughter of familiar people could be heard. But my attention was riveted to one place, to the house across the street, where Jamal slowly moved across the porch, as if enlivening the silence with his presence. At that moment I was overcome by a trembling mixture of joy and anxiety, as if I stood on the threshold of a new, unexplored world where the past and future intertwined in an inseparable knot. Every encounter with him awakened in me a strange feeling that time was returning to tell an old story anew, a story in which love and tenderness collided with forbidden boundaries, and every touch and every glance became a bridge between worlds. I understood that this feeling, as bright as it was painful, had long settled in the deepest recesses of my soul, and now returning home, I could not ignore it. With this feeling in my heart, I walked on, sensing how familiar streets, familiar sounds, and familiar scents filled me not only with nostalgia, but also with a quiet, tormenting hope. The hope that in a world where everything seemed changeable, something eternal and irresistibly attractive would remain, like Jamal's reflection in the evening light, a symbol of that true feeling, which, no matter how forbidden it seemed, could overcome all boundaries and unite hearts ready to hear its call. The night enveloped the city in a thin veil of drizzling wind, and everything around seemed shrouded in mystery, as if inviting one to forget about everyday life and dissolve in a whirlwind of sensations. On the narrow streets, glistening with fresh moisture, the lights of lanterns flickered, reflecting in puddles like scattered sparks of hope. I walked, not knowing where the night would lead me, and the air was filled with an elusive magic, promising something more than just a chance encounter. In the crowd at the city festival, where soft saxophone chords and quiet conversations mixed with the rustle of rain, I suddenly felt a familiar gaze, full of warmth and inexpressible strength. Among the sea of faces, where everyone was engrossed in their own celebration, my eyes met Jamal's. His gaze, confident and penetrating, reached the depths of my soul, as if he knew all my secrets, all the hidden dreams I had kept since childhood. The moment stretched into infinity. In this chaotic whirlwind of sounds and lights, time stopped, leaving only the two of us, as if the whole world had dissolved, giving way to the feeling I was experiencing. My heart beat faster, and I felt every cell in my body pulsating with anticipation, with a tender tremor that could not be called simple excitement. I took a step forward, as if guided by an unknown force, and our paths crossed closer than ever before. The light rain, like the touch of gentle fingers, caressed our skin, emphasizing that thin line between reality and dream. His hands, warm and confident, without unnecessary words, touched my shoulders, and at that moment I felt all the world's prohibitions retreat, giving way to a primal closeness that was so dangerously alluring. We stood on the edge of the world, where the noise of the festival became a distant echo, and every breath, every quiet whisper seemed more important than anything else. Between us unfolded an elusive connection, thin as a cobweb but strong as an unbreakable vow. In his eyes I saw tenderness mixed with the sadness of lived years, and in my reflection shimmered all the secrets accumulated over long years of waiting and dreaming. The world around disappeared, giving way only to our hearts beating in unison. A gentle kiss, at first shy and uncertain, gradually became confident, revealing all the facets of what had previously been forbidden and unattainable. I felt his lips, warm and tender, leaving a trace on my skin, as if every touch erased the boundaries between the past and the present, between dream and reality. At the moment when our gazes met again, all words seemed unnecessary. The silence, filled with the melody of rain and the quiet breathing of the night, became the only language capable of conveying the entire range of our emotions. Every movement, every breath spoke of how the forbidden could become a part of us. That true closeness is born not only from passion, but also from a deep, almost sacred connection that cannot be resisted. That night became a turning point when unspoken feelings took shape, when in the flow of rain and flickering lights we ceased to be mere passers-by in the vast world. We dissolved into each other, like two stars finding each other in the boundless cosmos of chance encounters and fateful moments. And in this kiss, full of quiet determination and unrestrained tenderness, I felt that there was no return to the past life. Our connection, so forbidden and alluring, had forever changed everything that had been before it. At dawn, when the first rays of the sun timidly broke through the lace curtains, I awoke with the feeling that the world around me had changed beyond recognition. A slight, almost imperceptible chill ran down my spine, and in the silence of the morning room, a storm of thoughts broke out. Every memory of the night when our lips merged in a kiss crashed over me like waves, bringing both warmth and an inexpressible sense of guilt. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to gather the scattered fragments of consciousness from the corners of my mind. My soul was torn between the frenzy of passion and the cold weight of realizing that this moment had violated all boundaries set by invisible laws. Reason struggled with the heart. One part of me screamed with boundless desire, the other, with the inevitable betrayal of my own essence, with the violation of the rules I had been raised with. Every breath reminded me that forbidden feelings not only entice but also destroy. The morning light, playing on the surfaces of old furniture, seemed so innocent, but even it could not dispel the darkness shrouding my thoughts. I tried to remember his gaze, deep, penetrating, full of unspoken sadness and wisdom, which penetrated me, leaving traces of invisible scars. In his eyes reflected the entire complexity of lived years, and at the same time, the gleam of that dangerous spark that had ignited a fire within me. How could such contradictory feelings be reconciled? Why, despite all the fear and doubts, did my heart continue to seek his touch? The day slowly spread to the corners of my room, and every minute was filled with the weight of the unspoken. I walked along the familiar alleys of my hometown, and every step echoed with the echo of inner conflict. Meeting the gazes of passers-by, I saw in their faces a reflection of my own distrust of myself, as if the world wanted to say, "You are violating invisible laws." But my feelings were too strong to be simply silenced by everyday routine. Remembering the night hours, I felt how the fear of the future mixed with a burning desire to repeat that moment, to forget about all prohibitions and conventions. In every drop of rain tapping against the windows of the cafe, where I sometimes sought solace with hot coffee, there was a quiet whisper of conscience, calling me to stop, to reflect on what had been done. But passion did not know how to listen. It demanded confirmation of its existence, a call to freedom, even if that freedom was doomed to destruction. I wondered how to live when two opposite flames burn so brightly within, how to find a balance between the duty imposed by society and oneself and that fire burning in the heart, tearing my soul apart. Every thought seemed like a stone falling into the bottomless lake of my soul, creating ripples of doubt and tormenting self-reflection. A lonely evening brought me a relentless noise of memories. I went out onto the terrace, where the evening chill contrasted with the heat of experiences, and gazed at the starry sky, trying to find answers to the questions that tormented me since that night. In the silence, I heard only my own breathing, quickened with excitement and thoughts racing faster than light. How many times did I ask myself, why? Why did I allow myself to drown in this ocean of contradictions? My hands trembled as I gently touched the cold railing of the balcony, as if hoping that this touch would bring me back to reality. With every breath, I felt an inexplicable pain, the pain of realizing that love, so forbidden and bright, could destroy all foundations and familiar reference points. But along with this came a sense of strength, a strength that made me doubt every step but also move forward, despite everything. Between the bright reflections of dawn and the shadows of the past, I found myself at a crossroads where every thought, every impulse was filled with meaning. It seemed to me that fate was testing all my foundations, my principles, my understanding of good and evil. Perhaps I was seeking a kind of freedom that could wash away all the stains of the forbidden from my soul, but I understood, with every new minute, the price for this forbidden love could become unbearably high. The night left scars in my soul, and now, in the bustle of the morning awakening, I felt their pulsation, like a reminder of how even the deepest desires do not come without pain. Passion and duty, desire and fear, hope and despair intertwined into a single whole, leaving me alone with myself. I understood that the path I had begun to walk led to unknown shores, where every drop of happiness turned into doubt, and every breath into a challenge to myself. Thus I stood, pondering whether the heart could find peace in this chaos, or whether my soul would forever remain a prisoner of the forbidden fire, which, despite all its danger, had become an inseparable part of my life. And only time would tell how great the price would be for this risk, for choosing to follow the call sounding from the depths of my being, even if this call was so forbidden and destructive. At dawn, when the city was enveloped in the last twilight of the night, I realized that everything had irrevocably changed. In the cold light of the new day, reflected in the wet asphalt and the quiet windows of old houses, I felt the full weight of the choice that could no longer be undone. Our forbidden choice, like an inexorable law of nature, led to the splitting of the soul into parts where joy and hope once lived. Now resided regret in the quiet pain of loss. Past nights filled with passion proved to be both sweet poison and bitter truth. I remembered every spark, every tremor when our gazes met, when our hearts, like shattered mirrors, reflected unfulfilled dreams. But along with this came the realization: every minute of happiness had its price, and this price, like an invisible thread, bound us to inevitable consequences. I wandered through the deserted streets of my hometown, feeling how every step echoed in the depths of my soul. Passers-by seemed like ghosts of long-gone days, their silence reminding me that time was inexorable and merciless, erasing even the brightest moments. In every reflection in the windows, in the gleam of drops on the glass, I sought traces of what we had lost. But I could not find an answer to the tormenting question. Was it possible to return the lost world when the heart was already torn apart? In the silence of solitude, I returned to familiar places, where once our laughter and conversations filled the air with warmth. Now, however, even the familiar courtyards seemed alien, as if time had taken life from them, leaving only the shadow of former existence. I remembered those moments when Jamal, with his deep, wise gaze, seemed the embodiment of strength and consolation, when his touches were a promise of new life. But in this morning chill, his warmth seemed only a distant echo, a remnant of past days. Every minute became a test. Within me, a war raged between the desire to forget and the inevitable need to preserve in memory everything that was dear. Deep down, I felt that the forbidden feeling, once so passionate and alluring, had now turned into an invisible burden. It left wounds that could not be healed with simple words of consolation. These wounds were not only physical reminders of our nights, but also the inevitable trace on my soul, a sign that every passion, every forbidden impulse had its consequences. Alone with myself, in the silence of the old room, I reread my thoughts, as if trying to find in them the key to letting go of the past. But the thoughts swirled like autumn leaves, with every gust of wind reminding me of those moments when the boundaries between dream and reality disappeared. I wondered, could I forgive myself for this choice? Could I reconcile with the fact that love, so forbidden and fleeting, had become the cause of constant inner turmoil? The pain of lost illusions, mixed with a quiet sense of freedom, the freedom of realizing that there was no return to what was before. I had learned to hear the voice of my soul, quiet and barely perceptible, but in it resonated the truth. Every choice, no matter how painful it seemed, laid the foundation for a new understanding of oneself. This truth was harsh, but it was in it that the possibility of redemption lay, the beginning of a new path where the lessons of the past could become a guiding star in the search for inner harmony. Saying goodbye to the images that haunted me in every corner of the familiar world, I felt how the heaviness of forbidden love gradually gave way to a tender sadness, like a rainy morning when every drop became a symbol of purification. I understood that the price of love was not always destruction, but also the possibility of renewal. Every wound inflicted by our choice could become a source of strength if I learned to accept my pain and draw lessons from it. In this final moment, when the sun finally rose above the horizon, I felt a strange calm. It was not joyful or encouraging, but rather a bittersweet realization. The path I had chosen was irreversible, and now I had to live with its consequences. But in this inevitability, I saw a new possibility, the possibility to reevaluate my values, to learn to appreciate not only fleeting feelings, but also that quiet, steadfast love born from accepting oneself. Thus, against the backdrop of the spreading bright morning, I closed my eyes and, with a deep sigh, accepted my fate, realizing that every drop of pain and joy intertwined in the complex tapestry of life. And perhaps one day, at the crossroads between memories and dreams, I would find the strength to let go of the past and step into the future, where forbidden feelings would become just a part of the long journey to self-discovery and true harmony.